right, so today I'm going to be talking to you about animal shelters, both humane and ones that euthanize the animals. So here we go. All right, common excuses for why people put their animals up for adoption. I've actually worked in an animal shelter, a humane animal shelter, for 4 years. And the excuses that we most commonly hear are we're moving, we're having landlord issues, we have too many pets. This one is always like one of my favorites, involving the girlfriends. My girlfriend is allergic / doesn't like my pets. My girlfriend has cats and my dog doesn't like cats. My dog jumps on people. My cat is ruining my furniture and the litter box smells. And the cost of pet maintenance / vet bills are too much. And especially right now, the last one is probably the one we hear the most because of the bad economy. And people are like losing their homes, or they just can't manage to keep the pets anymore because of costs. And people complain about like food costs and stuff like that, which I think is ridiculous, but hey, whatever. So next, these are just some statistics about animals that go into shelters. 56% of dogs and 71% of cats that enter animal shelters are euthanized. And euthanasia is when the animals are put to sleep, so pretty much they're killed. Only 15% of dogs and 2% of cats that enter animal shelters are reunited with their owners. That's mainly because of lack of identification, especially with cats. A lot of like free roaming cats don't have ID tags, and people pick them up, or they're like going into somebody's garbage or something, so people like trap them and bring them into animal shelters. And so most of the time, animals aren't actually reunited with their owners. And the part that's worse about, the most upsetting part about that is that a lot of people have, like, a lot of animal shelters will put the animals aside for the ones that euthanize. I think it's 7 days. And during that 7-day period, the animals or the owners can come and they have the right to reclaim their animal and don't have to pay a fee or anything. And in the non-kill shelters, I mean, anytime that an animal is brought in, it's a 2-week process that they have to go through of claiming the animal and having rights over the animal, and then the animal is able to be put up for adoption. So for the next part of the stats, 25% of dogs and 24% of cats that enter the shelters are adopted. So that just goes to show the amount that are euthanized in comparison to the amount that are actually adopted out. And more cats are euthanized than dogs because they're more likely to enter the shelter without owner identification. On top of that, the numbers of cats that come in comparison to the number of dogs, it's a much higher rate with cats. Approximately 3.7 million animals are euthanized in nation shelters in 2008, and that's just 2008 alone, and that's pretty drastic numbers. Here's a little pie chart that I did just to show you some percentages with, I don't know, like a visual aid. So you can take a look at that for a second. All right. And then when an animal is actually put into a county shelter as opposed to a privately owned humane organization, they go through what's called a SAFER test. A lot of shelters use this, and it's supposed to measure a dog's adoptability, which it goes over, they pinch the dog to see how the dog reacts to pinching, and then they run around in the dog's pen area, and it's in a playful manner, and then they use a fake arm and put it near the dog's food while the dog is eating to see if they'll show any aggression. And then they bring another dog in to observe to see if that dog is going to show aggressive signs to a dog that isn't as aggressive. And then there's not really a test for cats. I mean, if you put your hand in a cat's pen and it comes after you or attacks you, it's not usually a nice cat. So that's pretty much a test for that. Plus, cats are really independent animals, so either they're nice or they're not. They want to be around humans or they don't. Right here, these are pictures from the shelter that I worked at. I didn't see what that said. This is pictures from the shelter that I worked at. So the boxer well, they're both boxers. That's Pearl on the far side, and she came in and she was obviously starving, and we at humane organizations do kind of a similar test to SAFER, where we like test to see if the dog is aggressive with food and whatnot. Well, Pearl was aggressive with food, and I bet anybody would be aggressive with food because she was really hungry, like she's skin and bones. And so at any county shelter, she would have been put down because they wouldn't have thought that she was adoptable. And she was a perfectly sweet dog. She was great with other dogs. She was great with people, great with kids, fine with cats. It's just for the first 2 months of her life, life in a humane foundation, she was really aggressive with food. And I mean, logically, I think that makes sense why she'd be aggressive with food. But in a shelter that wasn't humane and euthanized animals, she would have been put down. Furthermore, well, she would have been kept around until she was able to raise her puppies, which right here, she didn't have enough milk, so we had to feed her puppies for her. So she probably would have been quickly gotten out of the shelter to make room for other animals. Here, these are more pictures. We have in the far top corner, that was Star. She was really aggressive with other dogs and was actually a little bit aggressive towards her own puppies. If they, started mouthing on her or something. And that's not very common, and she would have been an animal that was put down in a shelter, but she's perfectly nice to people and everything. It would have been great as a single dog in a home with kids. Second, does this have a little, this dog right here, that's Cynthia. She's a pit bull. We got her from, if anybody knows where Culpeper, Virginia is, we got her out of a trailer park there where they were doing a lot of dog fights, and she was one of the dogs that was used for that, so therefore she had problems with other dogs. Understandable. So she was great as a single dog, and she actually was adopted. She wouldn't have gotten that opportunity in a normal shelter. This is Walter. Really, he came in, he was known as the cat killer. When we'd walk him around, he would go after cats, and if he was able to get a hold of one, he would have killed one, and that's why he was sent to the shelter. This guy right here is Wally. He was a really, really high energy dog, jumped up all the time, had absolutely no training whatsoever, and in a normal shelter, they wouldn't have had time to work with him, and he probably would have been put down. And then right here, we have a 3-legged dog. I can't remember her name. I think it was Jessie. She let's see, and then this little guy came with her too, and they were inseparable. And she probably wouldn't have been adopted just because she has 3 legs. I mean, unless somebody was able to take pity on her. And once a dog's time is up in a normal shelter, then, I mean, that's pretty much it. It doesn't matter if they're really sweet or good animals. And then this is just right here. This is a kitten, except its ribs were collapsed and started to go into its heart. So he would have been put down because of just health issues. And all these dogs ended up being adopted, so because they were in a humane shelter. And then that's just me with some animals and doing stuff at the shelter. And so that's my talk about humane versus shelters that euthanize.